What's up, everybody? Today I'm going to talk about something that a lot of guitarists struggle with at first, and that's how to play chord changes accurately and quickly. In this lesson, I'm going to break down a few ways that I practice chords with examples and show you how to improve your chord playing. Now, the number one thing you need to remember when playing chords is that your fingers need to move as a unit. Oftentimes, beginner guitarists or even intermediate and advanced guitarists that struggle with chords will move one finger at a time, and that's going to slow you down a lot in the long run. The trick is to picture the destination chord you have in mind and have all your fingers move simultaneously towards that goal. So let's take the movement from a G chord to a C chord. I want you to practice moving from one chord to the next without picking, just moving the fingers from the G position to the C position, there and back a bunch of times. As you lift your index finger and move it from the A string to the B string, I want you to simultaneously move the rest of your fingers as well. Your goal should be for all of your fingers moving from the G chord to land on the C chord at the same time. Now, even though some fingers have to travel less distance than the others, they should all arrive at the same point. Let's look at a quick example. The following chords are from the chorus of a song I wrote called We're in Need. I chose this song because even though the chords are pretty standard diatonic changes, they require a lot of movement and often change once per beat. Now, this is the part of the video where you're going to see a couple links flash up top to check out my music on Spotify or Bandcamp. If you're interested, check it out. If not, keep watching the lesson. So here are the chords. Now, when attempting to learn a new song that has chord changes that are giving you trouble, never immediately jump into the strumming pattern. So for this song, I'm strumming a lot, and if I were learning this for the first time, I wouldn't include the strumming pattern at all, and instead, I would focus on playing each chord for a whole note before moving to the next one. My goal here is to practice the transition between chords. Now, if there are certain chords that aren't giving you any trouble at all, then don't feel the need to focus on those, but go until you find a chord change that is giving you trouble. So for instance, for the first three chord changes, we have C, C over B, and A minor. What I would do is I would play each one for a whole note before moving to the next. So C, C over B, A minor. Now, you don't want to add a new chord to the progression until the transitions between the chords you already have are smooth. Once you can play the entire progression all the way through smoothly, then decrease the duration of each note to a half note, and then to a quarter note, and so on and so on. This is the same method I use to practice scales, but the only difference is I use smaller durations, so I'll start with eighth notes and work my way up to 8 notes per beat. And when the chords are finally fluid at a quarter note or faster, that's the point in which you want to start incorporating the strumming pattern. A good rule of thumb is to start at 50% of the speed of the original song and work your way up from there. Obviously, 50% is going to be pretty easy for most people, even if they're having trouble with the chord changes, and you want to bump up quickly. I would say about 10 beats per minute or so each time you bump it up. And you want to keep bumping it up until you find a speed at which you can no longer do the chord changes smoothly with the strumming pattern. This way you work slowly and you bump yourself back down and try to work over the target area. It may seem very overwhelming at first with certain complex strumming patterns, but the most important thing is to remember to go slow, focus on the chord changes, when you're going to mute the strings, and any other variables that may come into play. Another thing I tell students to practice is to use all the open chord positions that they know. The goal here is to switch to no particular chord in no particular order, but just to get your fingers moving quickly. For the sake of clarity, let's choose C, D, A, and E. Make your way through these chords in the way that I described before. As this becomes easier and easier, start incorporating chords that aren't necessarily in open position, such as chords with extensions and bar chords. Search for common tones between the chords. This will really help you isolate which fingers need to move and which don't. For example, moving from A minor to E minor really only requires the shift of one finger. When you play the A minor chord, you're going to be taking off your ring finger entirely, moving your pointer finger over to the A string, and keeping the middle finger where it is. So in this way, there's really only one shift happening. Be on the lookout for smooth transitions through common tones. This is something that piano players do all the time, and as a guitarist, you should do this as well. Lastly, I want to include an exercise from John Petrucci's Rock Discipline. There's going to be a link to that in the description. In John Petrucci's DVD, he uses this exercise as a stretching warm-up, but it's also the perfect exercise to get better at moving your fingers for chords. So for this exercise, we're going to start with our index finger on the 7th fret of the D string, and then all our other fingers are going to be diagonally across the rest of the strings. John Petrucci does this on a higher fret in his video, but I found that starting around the 7th fret works better for acoustic guitars and electric guitars, as acoustic guitars don't often have the high cutaway that electrics do. So we're going to start around the 7th fret, and what you want to do is either arpeggiate this chord or strum it. After you do that, the next thing you're going to do is flip your inner 2 fingers while keeping the other 2 in place. Then you're going to play that chord, and then you're going to flip the outer 2 fingers, keeping the other 2 in place as well. Lastly, you're going to flip your inner 2 fingers again and play that chord. You want to try to move only the fingers that you need to and keep the others grounded on the fretboard. So all 4 chords would look like this. You want to repeat this exercise starting on the A string and the E string as well. The goal for this is not necessarily speed, but fluidity between chord changes. So to recap everything we talked about, first, your fingers need to move as a unit. Second, you want to isolate difficult chord changes and practice them slowly and repeatedly. Practice random chord changes and try to increase the difficulty as they become easier. And lastly, keep non-essential fingers close to or grounded on the fretboard as you move the fingers necessary to go to the next chord. And that's about it. Thanks for watching, guys. Let me know what topics you'd like to see me cover in upcoming videos. I want to do more lessons like this, but I also want to cover more general music-related topics. So if there's something you'd be interested in me talking about, please let me know. I'm aiming to do one of these videos or so per month, and if they go well, maybe more. Lastly, check out my album on Spotify and Bandcamp if you haven't already, and I'll see you next week.